Okay, so I'm going to show you how to create different animation states in Construct 2 for a character, in this case the player. And I've already created the object. It's a sprite object. It has various animations: idle, walk, run, crouch, and crawl. And I'll be showing you how to change between those animations when the player presses various keys. And so you might, I'm thinking, press left or right just to walk, and then maybe double tap and hold to make the character run, and then down to crouch, and down to the right and left to crawl. And so that's what I'm thinking for this video, and it'll be basically unedited so that you could just get the whole thought process, because I haven't planned this out ahead of time. I'm just doing this spontaneously, so I'm gonna be figuring things out as I go, so in that way hopefully you'll get more out of it instead of just a step-by-step thing. Anyways, so I have the layout, and then I go into the event sheet, and this assumes you kind of understand a little bit about Construct 2. If you don't, then feel free to ask questions and I can answer them or create other videos. Anyways, I'll add an event. We need a way to receive the key presses. So we have the keyboard object, and let's see, key is down. Let's just start off simple. I'll use the WASD keys for movement. So if I press D, I want the player to move right. So let's just start off by moving the player. Okay, let's see, move at an angle. We could move at an angle, we could move forward, or just set the X position. I usually just work with the position coordinates. That just makes more sense in my mind when you're working with the X and Y values. So we go with the player dot X plus 1, or we could do self dot X plus 1, or that would add 1 every tick, or we could do 100 times DT, so that what that means is, like, over the course of 1 second it'll travel 100 pixels to the right. So let's try that, and then let's create another. Let's copy that and change the keys down to A is down, and change this to minus 100 times DT. DT is delta time. You probably know that. If you don't, you could search online and learn what it is. So we have left and right. Let's run this just to show you that the player actually moves. So if we press D, the player moves right. If we press A, the player moves left. Obviously it's not animated, so let's work on that. Okay, so we could just simply change the animation state as well by going to animation and then walk. Okay, so this would change the animation, but then it wouldn't stop running the animation. So we put that in either one, and then we could create another event. There's various ways to do it, so we may have to change it later on if things kind of don't work well with other events. So we basically do the same thing. I could just copy these conditions here and paste them into here. Now if I right click and go invert, what this means is if A is not down and if D is not down, so if neither of those are down, we could add an event that changes the animation back to the idle state. So now when we run it, it's standing there. Now if we press D, if we press D, it starts walking and the animation changes. As soon as we let go, the animation stops. It changes back to the idle animation. So we can go left and right. As you can see, the animation, the sprite doesn't get mirrored to face the other way. So let's do that. So it's facing right already. So when we press A, we want it to be mirrored. So go and add an action for the player, set mirrored, and mirrored. Okay, so that when we press A, it'll be set mirrored. Now we'll also want it when you press D to set it unmirrored. Okay, so now let's run it again. Press right, it runs or it walks that way. Press left, it walks the other way. It changes directions based on whether you press A or D. Okay, so that's good. So let's try something else. Let's see. Okay, so now what about running? Walking versus running. What we want to do is make it so that when you double tap a key and then hold it down on the second time, it'll start running. So how do we recognize that a key has been pressed twice? We'll need to be able to record the previous key and then the time it takes to press the key again, basically. So there's various ways you could do that. You could use a timer with the add a behavior, the timer behavior, and then set like a time and then read how long the time has elapsed and things like that. But in this case, there might be other actions that we could perform, other animations, like with the special moves where you hit a few keys and it activates like a certain action or whatever. So we might do that later on. So let's think, or let's plan ahead for that, I guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an array, and the array will hold all our key presses and the time, the current tick count. Anyways, I'll explain as I go through it. So we'll create an action on any key pressed, and then we will, let's see here, we will push a new value to the array, and we'll go into the keyboard expressions and get the last key code that was pressed. So this is basically the key code of the key that was pressed, and we'll store it in the array. Okay, so every time we hit a key, a new value gets added to the array. And we could also when we add a value, we could take off a value so that the array doesn't keep growing in size. So to do that, we would just choose the pop action and then choose the front value, because we're adding a value to the back and then we're taking one off of the front. So the front, I think, would basically be like index 0 of the array, and the push would be to whatever is the last one on the array. Okay, so we also need to store the tick count. So in the array object, if it's not selected, you just select it over here, and then actually let's also rename it keypress array, I guess is a good name for it. And the size of it, we could set the size, actually let's set it to 10, because we'll be removing one when we add one, so there should be some values already in there. But the limit as to how many values we could add is 10. It'll be a 2D array, so we add a width and a height to the array, which is like X and Y columns and rows. Okay, so we need we have 10 columns and 2 rows basically, and one will be the key, the last key code, and then the other will be the tick count. And what the tick count is, basically each game cycle adds 1 to the tick count, so we'll be able to get how many ticks have passed since the last key press has been made. So let's set the last I think we could just get the back value on, oh, that's the back value. Let me try to remember. Oh, okay, we could just get the width. In this case it's 10, but if we change it later on, it'll automatically update since we'll use just the width value. So width value would be 10, but it goes 0 to 9, so we have to do -1, the index value. And since there's two rows in the array, it'll be 0 and 1, so we choose index of 1 for the Y, and then we set the value to the tick count. Okay, if you don't know like how arrays work, that might be a bit confusing, you know, columns versus rows, and the width and height and the depth and X and Y and things like that. So if that's a little confusing, you can kind of just search online and about like arrays and things and get an idea as to how they work, how they're structured. It's not that difficult. It's just like a matrix of values. I don't know. So we add those. Okay, now let's just debug it and show you the array, how it changes when we press the keys. So if we go over here, we have the array data down here, as you can see, and the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the values. So if we start pressing stuff, as you can see, the keys, the data in the array changes. Left, right, left, right, left, right. And you can see you have the key code, which is 65 and 68. I think 65 is left and 68 is right. And then the tick count, which constantly increases as the game runs. So if you press the key count, if you press the keys really quickly, the tick counts will not have the value will be very similar, but if you wait a long time, then the value will be what's the word? I don't know. You get the idea. Anyways, let's get back into construct 2 and continue on. So we have the key presses being stored. So when we press D is down, when the key D is down, we could check to see I'm trying to think how to check the history when the left or right key is pressed. I'm trying to think what the best way to do that is. So we could add a sub event when the D key is pressed, and we could check the array. We could check the previous value in the array. Self.width -2. So instead of -1, it would be -2. So that would get the previous one, the second to the last value in the array. And so that's X, and then Y would be 0, and that would get the key code. If the key code is equal to let's see, how do we do this? Get character string representing a key code. That assumes we have the key code. Okay, we could just, I guess we could just do that. We get the string from the key code stored in the array. Well, no, actually. See, it would be good if we had that's weird. There's not an expression to get the key code of a string. Let's just set this to 0 for now, just to show you this is the sub event. we need to check if the value in the array equals the key code of D when the D is pressed. And that'll mean the same key was pressed twice. So we have the key code stored in the array. But there's no expression to convert a string to a key code. We could store the string of the key code. Actually, is that right? Got the last key code and then string from key code. Okay, let's just store. For now, let's add another value to the array, or another row. So we set that to 30, and then just add, instead of tick count, and change this to let's change this to 2, 0, 1, 2. And then change this other one and change the tick count to string from key code and then the last key code. So this will store the string the key code represented as a string value. So if we press D, it'll store the letter D. If we press A, it'll store the letter A. So we store the key code, the string value of the key code, and then the tick count. So if we go back up here into the sub event and we compare a value in the array, in this case we'll compare the string value is equal to D. I don't know if it'll be uppercase or lowercase. I'm not sure. Let's just do D for now. So if that's true, then the key was hit twice. So just maybe just change the animation to run. But we also need to compare the time between the last press. So we'll have to compare the two values, the current value and the previous value. So let's add another condition and go just system conditions and compare two values, and then we'll choose the key press array and then and we could get the value at a specific X and Y position in the array. So in this case, key press array dot width -1, comma 2. This gets the tick count from the current key press, the last key press, and then we can subtract that from the previous tick count. So we change it to -2 instead of -1. And since the current tick count will always be larger than the previous tick count, when we minus it, it'll be positive. It'll always be a positive value. But we want to see if it's less than a certain amount. So if we have an FPS of 60 frames per second, we'll have 60 ticks in every second. So if you want to press the key, so we don't want the run animation to play if we press a key every 2 seconds. That would be too long of a period between the key presses. So we only want it to fire when the key presses are pressed really quickly. So in this case, maybe we could try I don't know, less than 60. So if it's less than a second, assuming that the FPS is 60, we may have to change this later just to make it work at different FPSs. Okay, so if that's true, then it'll change it to the run animation. Otherwise, it'll just use the walk animation. Let's try that. Try running it, see what happens. Okay, so we left, walks left, right, walks right. So now let's press it twice and see what happens. Not much. I don't think it's working. Okay, so let's go back and see why it's not. That's what it should look like if it's running. The value D is an uppercase D, maybe. I don't know why it would be that. Let's try that. Oh, okay. Did something different. Okay, it's changing the animation, but it's not playing it all the way. So maybe it keeps changing the animation back to the beginning. Oh, okay, I see why. Because it sets it to the walk animation, then it sets it to the run animation. So it keeps changing it walk and then run. So it doesn't have time to continue to run because it gets changed back to the walk animation when the key is down. So we could just add an else here and do that. So if it's the same key, then change it to run. Otherwise, just change it to the walk animation. Let's try it now. So we go left and then right and then running. See? So double tap and it's running. If it's just pressed once, then it's walking. So now also if we do that, we might want to change the speed as well. that the character moves, so that it's moving quicker. So in that case, we could just, instead of, well, we can move this plus 100 down with the walk animation, and then copy it and put it in the run, and increase it by however much. We'll do 150 for running. And then we can just copy these and put it into the other one and change this to an A, and remove these and change this to minus, so it goes the other direction, and this one to minus since it was copied over. And now let's run it. So now we got left and right. Running moves faster, as you can see. So if we press it once and then twice and it runs, and then wait and it goes back to walking. See? So run, stop, wait a little bit, press it again, and then it walks. Now, as you can see, if I press it within a second, it runs. So you may have to like change the value here instead of 60 and make it lower. But in case the FPS changes, we could how do we do that? We can just type in FPS, and that'll give you how many frames per second the game is currently running. So frames per second. And so if you want it to be half a second, you just times this by 0.5 or divide it by 2. Multiplication, I think, is quicker than division as far as processing. So that would be like half a second. We could try that. And also over here, do the same thing. FPS times 0.5. So let's run it and see if it's still, if it's good. Is it quick enough? Yeah. You don't want it too quick, otherwise it'll be impossible to press the key fast enough. So that seems all right. Can maybe even reduce it a little more. But you get the idea for that. Now that's taken care of. We may have to change some stuff in the future depending on what other stuff we add. But that's one way to handle those animations. Now, what about crouching and crawling left and right? That will, when we crawl left and right, we'll also be using the D and A keys, so that might mess with these events and we may have to change them. So let's add a blank event and move it there, I guess, for now. Copy this condition over, change it to S. This will be down. So when we press S, we'll want the character to crouch. So we add an animation here, crouch animation. And then copy that, invert it. This one D is not down. Oh, we could just add this to this other one. Actually, can we do that? When you're pressing down, you're crouched. Okay, yeah, we could just add it to the other one, I think. Because it won't be playing the idle animation if you're pressing S, A, or D. So, yeah. Delete that. So now let's run it. Pressing down, it crouches. When you're not pressing down, stands up. Left, right, down. Now, if we press right and press down, it goes into crouch mode. So that's a problem. So let's see how we fix that. We want to be able to crawl left and right. So if we go into these other animations, or these other events, A and the D. So when we're crawling left and right, A or D will be pressed. So we can check to see if S is down as well. So we'll add a blank sub event in within this event. S is down, and then add an else event and put these other events in the else condition. So if S is not down, it'll either run or walk, okay? But if S is down, then we'll want it to crawl. So let's do that for the other side. Oops, that's not right. Uh-oh. Add an else and then drag these into the else event. Okay, so let's run that and see what happens. Okay, so left, right, pressing down, nothing happens. But he stops when we press down. He doesn't crawl for some reason. Why doesn't he crawl? Oh, okay, wait. Because we have this other event down here. So all these events up here get run, but then this one also runs because S is down. So, So D is down, A is down. S is down. We could put this, actually no, that's, I'm trying to think how to stop this from running when these other events are run. Oh, okay, we could do S is down, but A and D is not down. Okay? So let's try that. Oops. So left, right, press down, and it's crawling. But we need to make it so that the character moves while crawling. So we just copied this, send the X position, and when crawling we'll want it to move slower than walking, so we'll just do 50. And copy it over. Change it to plus. Okay, let's try it now. So we got left, right, down, move to the right, move to the left. Now you walk in, press down, crouching or crawling. Running, press down. Okay, so it's working pretty good. You can see we have a lot of different animation states changing based on what you're pressing. And it's already looking pretty good. So other things that we might be able to do from here is jumping, maybe doing a roll. Like if you're running and then you press down, maybe the character could like do a rolling animation. Maybe we could do some attack animations. If it gets hit by something, you know, whatever. So if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comments. If you want anything explained, or you want me to show you how to implement something in Construct 2, let me know. But for now, this will give you a little idea as to how to go about setting up different animation states and changing them based on which buttons are pressed and stuff like that. As you can see, there's a different there's various ways you could get organize the events to get certain effects, certain procedures to the animation. You know, if, else, and sub events. Based on where these are placed, different things happen, and inverting the conditions and changes whether it runs. We also have the array recording the buttons, so we might be able to do like combos, pressing like back, forward might allow us to do like a certain attack or something like that. So maybe we could do that in a future video, but for now I think this covers some basics. Hope it was helpful.